Alright, Victorum Gaming fans and Hail Caesar fans, we're back with another video in our series covering the different factions for the game. And today we've got the early Carthaginians for you. So this is about 6th century through 3rd centuries BC. And this is not the typical Carthaginian army that you might think of with like Hannibal. This is actually a period before that. So we got some of the references there to point you in the right direction. So like Queen Dido, Hanno, Hamilcar, the Greek Punic Wars. So a lot of good stuff there that doesn't always get the limelight because it's generally overshadowed by Hannibal's exploits. So really good stuff there. So definitely before the Punic Wars that we would more recently, or not recently, but more typically reference against the Romans. So interesting little look, and again a different Carthaginian list than what you might expect. So something cool to expand. And if you've already collected Carthaginians, you've basically got the models. You don't really have to make any accommodations. Interesting list too. So infantry has to be at least 50% of the army. Again, doesn't include skirmishers. And then we have some other interesting choices here on the cavalry chariot side. So cavalry can be up to a quarter of the army. However, because the Carthaginians at this point didn't really have great cavalry, even as it says in the description of them, worse than the Greeks at the same time period, light cavalry does have to be at least half of the total cavalry. And then, interestingly, chariots are still a thing here, so up to a quarter of the army can also be chariots. And then, again, we get the usual division and skirmisher restrictions there. And it's a pretty diverse list, too. So, it's got some mercenary action here, and then kind of all the different sort of tribes and other stuff that they would have in addition to their own sort of homegrown Carthaginian troops. So we start off with that typical African medium infantry with long spears, and we have a pattern here that we see for the first few units where you can basically pay a little bit extra to upgrade that infantry to a phalanx, and these aren't necessarily hoplite troops, so you basically got medium infantry phalanxes here. You are going to pay for that 3 extra points there, so 29 points a unit for just that. It's interesting to maybe test that out and actually get some gameplay with that, because at the end of the day it's still medium infantry, but phalanx does obviously give you several key benefits if you can make use of that in the right situation. Then we have essentially what really would be considered, I guess, hoplite infantry as far as stats and stuff go, and similar to the Greeks and so on. We have the heavy infantry with long spears. Basically, it's the same as above, except you're getting better clash and sustained and a better armor save. And again, you can pay 3 extra points to get phalanx out of these guys. And so we go from 26 points to 29 points. 29 points as the new base for the heavy infantry. And, interesting comparison there. So light infantry phalanx versus just heavy infantry with long spears. Same point cost. Arguably, which one's better? It just, I guess, depends. Are the stat increases worth more than the phalanx? Probably, question of your playstyle and what you how you feel like you need to use those kind of units. But again, we can also make this heavy infantry phalanx, and then you're at 32 points a unit. There's no restrictions on it, which is cool. Again, and at least 50% of the army has to be infantry. So, by all means, you're going to be taking a lot of these types of things. So the cost, a little bit high compared to a lot of the other contemporary armies that we've been looking at as we make our way through the lists. But just being able to drop all kinds of different flavors of heavy and medium infantry here onto the opponent, and basically not really a pike wall, but this pseudo hoplite type wall that you can build here with just unit after unit of these guys is a great core to your list and can definitely do some work. You probably want the heavy infantry to really be that center of your army, with the medium infantry maybe a little bit more towards the flanks, just so they don't catch all the heaviest action. But a very solid start to the army here. And then we have a really, really cool option that they have here. So with an upgrade, so we have what's called the Sacred Band heavy infantry with long spears. So you get 1 unit of them, and their shtick is they're the same stats as above, but they're elite and tough fighters. And they are at 33 points a unit. So And that's just their base ability there. So 1 point more than the heavy infantry phalanx, but wait, there's more. We can actually make that sacred band, that one unit, a phalanx as well for another, you guessed it, 3 points. So now we're at 36 points. And, if you're already going to take the sacred band unit, you might as well pay the extra 3 points and just get the phalanx out of it. Why would you want to take that and then leave that out? You might as well get as many of the upgrades as you can, and find somewhere else to cut 3 points from your army to make room for that. Again, so we're gonna have 7s on Clash and Sustain, the 4-up morale save, and then we get elite, tough fighters, and phalanx, and that's going to be one badass unit. So they should be able to deal with virtually anything out there. And again, the phalanx is just the icing on the cake there. Then we move into some units that, again, keep in mind this is early Carthage, so some stuff that you may or may not actually expect out of this. So we have Gallic medium infantry warbands armed with swords and javelins, and here we actually get a Clash of 9, kind of their crazy first round fighting ability. Drops off right back down to medium infantry levels with a 6. It's got a little bit of short range action, what you might expect for armor from medium infantry, but then it also has that wild fighters rule. So these guys can add that extra offensive punch. And again, with infantry just being straight up 50% of the army or more, you can take unit after unit of these guys and again, just bring all kinds of nastiness to bear on the opponent. Then we have some light infantry as well. So again, you're spoiled for infantry choices with the early Carthaginians here. So you get Spanish Scutari, light infantry with Pila. So not quite Romans, but again, light infantry. So the 5s there for Clash and Sustained is about what you can expect from light infantry. And again, against similar or weaker type of units, they'll do their thing. But, you can't throw these guys up against the heavy infantry and stuff like that above. You're just not going to do well. You're going to have a bad time. 6-up morale save, it's light infantry. They're not there to win a war of attrition, and only 23 points a unit, so it's pretty cool. And it gives you, again, that access to that Pila special rule. Again, special rules we'll cover in another video, hopefully sometime soon here for you guys. Then we have Ligurian light infantry armed with double-handed axes. So your clash ticks up by 1, and that's about it. Short range changes a little bit, but only 21 points a unit, but the double-handed axe benefits there is pretty cool. Which, if I'm not mistaken, is like -1 to enemy morale saves. Don't quote me on that until we double check and do that video for you guys. But again, surprising little offensive punches here in even the light infantry. And again, but wait, we have more infantry. Ligurian, Sardinian, or Corsican light infantry with javelins. So you get your skirmisher type units, but these aren't listed as small units. And you still get that respectable light infantry, 5 and 5, potent short range, and only 20 points a unit. And again, I have to emphasize that they are not small units, and you don't actually have the option to downgrade those guys. Then you have a Libyan light infantry warband. Again, warband there with javelins as well. Pretty respectable clash value there. And the short range and nothing else really. 21 points a unit there. So again, lots of little options there. And someone might think, oh, it's a light infantry unit, and maybe sort of get close foolishly, and you might actually surprise them there with your clash value of 7 when you start throwing 7 dice there that first turn. Now we move on to the actual true skirmishers, and again, you're spoiled for choices here. You have skirmishers armed with javelins as small units. So again, these are your little smaller missile harassment type units, and again, typical stats. We've seen these over and over and over again. However, again, no morale save as you would expect from such units. 11 points. Then we get Balearic skirmishers with slings. These guys are badass. Again, no combat ability really, so to speak. Getting these guys into combat is going to be bad news for you. But excellent for, again, small unit. Actually, it's not a small unit. I thought I saw a small unit. No, it's actually just a normal size unit. But you get respectable range stats and the marksman rule and all that for 13 points a unit. And unlike the units that are coming up here, there's no restriction on that, boys and girls. So you can just get unit after unit of badass slingers here. with marksmen. So you can basically get marksmen, the special rule, in quantity with this list, which is kind of bonkers too. And they do count as skirmishers, though, so just for your requirements and stuff up above, so you gotta be careful with that for filling out divisions. Then we move on to Ligurian Skirmishers with slings, only up to 1 unit here. And basically, they don't have marksmen, and they're 1 point cheaper. So, I guess if you're pressed for points, you could take them. Not sure why you wouldn't really want to keep going with Spanish Balearic skirmishers there. However, I guess maybe modeling purposes and so on. Sardinian skirmishers with bows. So again, a little bit more respectable long-range option here, but also 12 points a unit exactly as above. But again, you get that bow range. Now we move on to the cavalry. And again, you're not spoiled for choices here, but you have some interesting options. So you have the Carthaginian medium cavalry fielded as a small unit. You only get 1. And again, really very mediocre combat ability. They're not going to get much done for you, so really these guys can go deal with skirmisher type units like we just looked at up above. Good morale, again, medium cavalry, 5 up there, and again they're not going to win a battle of attrition here, although if they're, I guess, stuck fighting weak skirmisher units, it's not going to be so bad. But really you want to do those skirmisher units in as soon as possible with your 5 attacks on the clash there. 18 points for that 1 unit. Greek, Etruscan, or Campanian medium cavalry as small units. These guys are actually a little bit better, and just for 1 extra point, you're getting that 1 extra clash, which sometimes can make the difference. And you're not restricted on the number of units for this, so might be worth more than bothering with the actual Carthaginian cavalry unit, unless you're just trying to be thematic. And then, again, not surprisingly, considering Carthage's location, but you get Numidian light cavalry armed with javelins and as small units as well. So they do their thing, and I should mention all 3 of the cavalry units basically have a little bit of short range action here. And the Numidians, again, that sort of okay, mediocre 5 attack there, which, in comparison to the Carthaginian cavalry, you can kind of see here, right? This light cavalry unit with a 5 on the clash, whereas these guys are considered medium and they only have a 5. So shows you a difference in skill level, really. Light cavalry fighting as good as the mediums here, although their morale save is a little bit weaker. But feigned flight with a sort of missile harassment type unit is cool, especially with the cavalry there. Then, interestingly, I do believe for the first time in our series here, we've brought in some actual artillery. So medium artillery bolt throwers. So obviously, if these guys are stuck in combat, something bad has happened, and you can just sort of pack it up. If they've made it to your artillery lines, things are probably not going well. Again, that pretty decent long-range ability there, and for 20 points for the unit. And there's no restriction here as far as like just 1 unit, so bringing in a little bit of that for some extra long-range firepower. And then, last but not least, the chariots, which they consider light chariots, but they are 4-horse chariots, for, again, a little bit more mobile offensive punch, which the cavalry isn't really going to deliver for you in this army. Again, you have just awesome infantry of all kinds of flavors, light, medium, and heavy. More harassment cavalry, and really the Greek mercenary cavalry here is probably the best of the bunch, although it was probably a good idea to bring in some Numidian cavalry as well. And really, actually, you kind of have to, because I guess they have to be half of your cavalry if you are taking cavalry. So let me edit that for myself here. You are going to be bringing Numidian cavalry if you're bringing cavalry at all. And considering, again, that you have access to basically feigned flight in quantity with these units, you should probably invest in some of these guys. That's a cool pickup for the list. And then last but not least, again, that was that chariot. Bringing in some of that firepower. 8 on the clash is very respectable. Stays a 6. There's no chariot runners or anything like that, which we've seen with some of the earlier lists, and another great option of getting a 4-up morale save. No special rules for these guys, and does come in under 30 points for the unit, which is cool. And the crew does have javelins, so that's what gives you that short-range punch there. And then on the leadership side, so the typical leaders per division and commander, or the general, sorry, being leadership 8, as we've come to expect. However, if you are taking basically any hoplite division, so that would be really the heavy infantry Carthaginian hoplites, which I wish they would specify in the title up above. But basically, those a commander of that kind of division could be upgraded to leadership 9, and that would cost you 25 points for that upgrade, which 25 points could buy you basically a whole other unit of something. So you got to really decide, is that going to be worthwhile for you? But on the other hand, access to leadership 9 can actually really enable some more aggressive orders and being able to get more things done. The more orders you successfully pass and accomplish, generally that's a good thing for you, which should allow you to hopefully out general your opponent, or if not, at the very least, out dice your opponent with orders and order quality. So overall, just a fantastic list. And almost half tempted to start collecting Carthaginians just after reading through this carefully with you guys here. But yeah, lots of diversity here. It is, again, a infantry-focused list, and a very badass infantry-focused list at that. But the cavalry should be still respected here. They're not going to, do you in here with necessarily close combat prowess, but you have lots of basically small unit cavalry here, with, again, the Numidians going to be a sizable portion of that, if not the entire part of it, which, and again, this list is kind of crazy because you have access to feigned flight in quantity, you have access to marksmen in quantity, and you do have that super elite sacred band unit, which basically your Royal Guard type Carthaginian hoplite force. You have access to, just in general, phalanx in quantity for the Carthaginians here, and then lots of wild fighters in quantity too. So lots of special rules in quantity with this list, lots of different approaches. Again, you could go 100% infantry, you could sprinkle in some of that cavalry if you want, and the chariots as well, which, again, people might not be expecting out of Carthage, because, again, they might be thinking more the sort of classical Carthage with Hannibal and elephants and stuff like that. But, this is a chance to try something a little bit different, and really, again, still allows you to probably reuse most of your models that you have for your Carthaginians with sort of a different flavor, and let you war game a little bit earlier than what you typically associate Carthage with before we get into like the Roman times and stuff like that. So overall, just really nice stuff. Again, different flavors of infantry, heavy, medium, light, and different variations of that. Again, very different cavalry units, but again, the Numidians are really probably going to be your best bet here. And again, the cavalry is not really going to be doing the heavy hitting; it's more harassment. But again, lots access to just a lot of small units of these guys with feigned flight is pretty cool. First time we got some artillery in here as well, and then chariots on top of everything. And again, very solid leadership. And again, if you were going like hoplite heavy with this list, you could, I guess, even sort of go all elite with your whole army, or most of your army, especially the infantry divisions, and just have almost leadership 9 across most of the board here, which, again, is another thing that your opponent might not be expecting if they're expecting leadership 8, just like most everybody has, or even if they're sadly playing like a leadership 7 list, which we haven't really seen many of. But, when you're rocking leadership 9 and across multiple divisions, you're definitely going to get some things accomplished. So overall, really cool list. Cannot recommend this enough. And I know Victrix does make some excellent Carthaginian models, and I'm sure with all the other units that you have access to here, there's at least others that probably have plastic in it. But if you're a fan of metal models, of course, you're spoiled there too. There's a lot of manufacturers that have that. So overall, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give it a like if you could, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and then stay tuned for more Hail Caesar content. So again, this was the early Carthaginian list for Hail Caesar, and we'll see you in the next one.